All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've been watching a little documentary on Netflix about Puff Daddy. We're going to talk about that tonight on the Report from Tiger Mountain. Stick around and listen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've been watching a little bit of Netflix here at Castle Wollstonecroft, and we've been watching the new Puff Daddy documentary, Sean Combs documentary on Netflix. Now, obviously, it's not going to tell us everything, is it? But it's produced by 50 Cent, who's a bit of an enemy of Puff Daddy. And look, I'm going to use some colourful language. I'm going to get in the hood. All right, I'm somebody who grew up listening to Niggers with Attitude, ladies and gentlemen. I quite like that rap band. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of rap. I like Public Enemy. I like the Beastie Boys. I like Schoolie D. I liked a few of those bands when I was a teenager and a young man. And I like Niggers with Attitude, ladies and gentlemen, and a couple of Dr. Dre, I had those albums, why not? That was kind of, fun to kind of drive around and, listen to them in your car, et cetera, and it would upset people, and that was always fun. So, we're going to use some colourful language. So, well, what do we got with Diddy? You know what I mean? I guess it goes into he had a bad childhood, ladies and gentlemen. His father was a pimp, essentially, and his father died young. I don't know how old he was, maybe 3 or 4, so I hardly never knew his father, as far as I can tell. And his mother was essentially a prostitute, a hoe, as they would say in rap language. And she used to beat the living shit out of him, apparently. So I'm sure, some people that happens to, and they, in the African-American community, they like whoopings, as they say. And so maybe sometimes that kills the soul of a person. And in relation to Sean Combs, that appears to be the case. Because, when he became of age, he really wanted to be part of the rap game, the rap world, and he began to be a hanger-on at, different record companies. At that time, Russell Simmons was one of them, and there was another one whose name I can't remember. And it slowly worked his way up, kind of like as an A&R guy, like it's somebody who's like an artist representation. I don't know all these rap artists he used to work with. I hardly heard of them. Mary Bilge, I think, is one of them. And, so eventually he put on events as well. He was charismatic, and he put on these events. And in one of these events, all these people got crushed. And about 10 people died, 8 people died, something like that, one of these events. Wasn't particularly his fault, but he did over-promote this event. And, it sort of sets the stage for what is to come, ladies and gentlemen. And then, he fell under the influence of Clive Davis, who is the lovely, Jewish impresario who major record label Bozo in the United States, and who's discovered Whitney Houston and a whole number of other people. And he gave him a ridiculous amount of money, millions of dollars, and got him started with Big Boy. And then, of course, he discovered Biggie, which is, of course, the big fat rapper. And I think I have 1 or 2 Biggie albums. They're not bad. Quite street level, whatever you want to call it. But, this whole East Coast, West Coast thing began. Tupac and Biggie began as friends, but there's this weird situation where Diddy wanted to manage them or whatever, and so Diddy appears to have been right in the middle of it all, and he seems to have started this East Coast, West Coast war. First of all, he tried to ambush Tupac Shakur and shoot him outside of a studio, and then Tupac lived. And then there was Tupac's manager was this guy called Suge Knight, and he's also a legitimate gangster from Los Angeles. And so, you got the Bloods and the Crips get involved, so you got mayhem. First of all, Tupac Shakur gets killed. It does appear that Diddy was involved in that. Of course, he's never been charged, but from this documentary, it looks like he's guilty. And then, of course, Biggie was in the line of fire, ladies and gentlemen. And what happens? He takes him to LA and makes him drive around and do these parties. When Biggie never should have gone to LA. Then of course Biggie dies, and then the only last man standing is Puff Daddy. And I really didn't know all this about him, ladies and gentlemen, until I watched this documentary. And he is, he's a piece of shit. I just got to say it. He's a horrible person. He's had a long history of raping people. In the show, it deals with a woman he raped before he got famous, and then once he did get famous, he began to rape everybody he'd get his hands on, different girlfriends. Sometimes he would mistreat some women, sometimes he would treat them nice. He seems to be a narcissistic psychopath with $100 million up his sleeve. So he's just behaved terribly. He's filming people, he's blackmailing people. He recently got found guilty and has been sentenced to 5 years in jail. There's rumors Donald Trump might pardon him, but he really is a horrible person. And you just have to ask, what kind of sick society do we live in where this is some kind of major hero? And you have people like Sting. Sting wants to work with him, on that song. It was a kind of tribute to Biggie. Every breath you take. I'm sure you know that song. This was after he was involved possibly in the murder of Tupac Shakur. I don't know why all these Hollywood people are working with such a person. But, the baby oil goes into everything, mate. You just got to watch it. I've seen a lot of sick things. This guy's life is just, it's like, makes Caligula look like a choir boy, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I got to say. So that's it. So check that out if you want to find out the truth about this piece of shit.